Yes. What's happening, everybody? It is Tuesday night, 10 o'clock Central Time. We got the UFC Vegas 92 card coming up this Saturday, headlined by Edson Barboza versus Lerone Murphy. So you know what that means. It means it's time for Just the Tip with me, your host, Uncle Weezy. We're going to break down all 12 of these fights on this UFC Vegas 92 card from a stats and tape study perspective, give you all of the relevant information to help you break down the fight on your own, and hopefully find ways to stack cashed tickets like flapjacks so that we can enjoy watching these fights even more. Welcome to everybody that's watching live on YouTube and Twitter. Welcome to everybody that's watching the replay later on. Let's make some money together. Let's break down these fights so that we can figure out how to enjoy watching them even more by making money while we're watching them. I've got all my research ready. I've got an absolute ton of notes to go through with you guys today on all 12 of these fights. And hopefully we can come out plus, because we got a week off next week. So we've had a short little 4-week stretch here. We got 1 week off. And then what we're going to do is we're going to go like 12 to 16 weeks straight over the summer. This is the UFC's busy time. You know, once the NBA playoffs end, once the NHL playoffs end, it's just baseball and UFC. So really, this is the busiest time of year for us cappers after this week off. So I'm going to do everything I can to enjoy this week off and get ready for this crazy stretch that we have coming up here. But coming off of a loss last week, we had quite a few bets, a lot of round 2-3 bets that did not work out. I had, but you know, it wasn't a bad week overall. Esteban Ribovics was the ass shaving of the week last week at around -160. He made it look not only easy, but he made it look spectacular with a first-round head kick KO over Terrence T-Rex McKinney. So chalk up another ass shaving of the week in a row. I believe that's 7 ass shavings in a row that we're on a roll here on your Uncle Weezy's channel here. So we're going to try to make it 8 this week and then go into the break and regroup and see if we can come back even stronger for this long stretch of fights over the summer. But down 1.05 units. Lost 3/4 of a unit on Rombeski's round 2-3 props. Lost 3/4 of a unit on Billy Goff's round 2 and 3 props. Lost 3/4 of a unit on Esteban Ribovics 2 and 3 props. And then lost a 1/4 unit, and this one really hurt, on Chase Hooper round 2 or 3 KO props, which I had at plus 1855. I had the round 2 KO at 33-1. I had the round 3 KO at 45-1. And that was a plus 1855 bet at a 1/4 unit. So me not getting that stoppage from Keith Peterson, this man right here, you can see the resemblance between Bobby Hill from King of the Hill and Keith Peterson with his neck tattoos. They are very, very similar looking. It's actually kind of creepy. And that prick, he's done it to your Uncle Weezy so many times, you guys. You know, Leonardo Santos versus Clay Guida. You know, you remember when he was all drunk and he fell on Dan Argueta and Ronnie Lawrence just as Lawrence was about to tap, and that wound up being called a no contest. I mean, there's been just countless Keith Peterson fuck-ups, and just so many of them wind up costing your Uncle Weezy money. This one was no different. So Keith Peterson, get some help. We're not joking this time, man. We want to see you get some help. Stop stumbling around the cage drunk. Get a decent shave. You know, act like you're a professional, for God's sake, because you're costing me money. This is a 5-unit swing for your Uncle Weezy. I go from a 1-unit loss to a 4-unit win if it weren't for your dumb ass. God damn it. Anyway, so we lost 1.05 units. That broke a 3-week winning streak. We got to get right back on that winning streak, you guys. I'm not going on losing streaks anymore. Fuck that. We're putting in the work this week. We're running downhill, and we're going to wind up making a bunch of money. The chart goes up. The momentum goes down because we're going to have that wind behind us. We're going to have that momentum behind us, and we're going to pick up speed as the year goes on here and start really stacking them high. But thank you guys for joining us. There's 67 of you already hanging out live in here. I hope you guys are ready to break down some fights. We've got a bunch of really good ones. Let's see who's hanging out in the chat with us here. We got my guy Olajuwon Dream in the room saying, "Oi!" And we've got Presidente Pedro saying, "Oi!" And Presidente Pedro believes that Abus is going to be the ass shaving of the week over Warlley Alves. We're going to find out at the end of the show. Uncle Weezy's ass shaving of the week. We're looking to make it 8 in a row, you guys. So let's go. We've got DFS by the numbers in the room saying, "Oi!" Yes. We got Remdog saying, "Oi!" Yes. Back on Tuesday night. Yes, sir. The last couple of weeks just fell behind a little bit. Wasn't able to finish up researching all of the fights by Tuesday night. Have had some other things going on in life. So, yeah, but this week crammed it all in today. Actually, I'm on my second helping of coffee today because it was just one of those nights, man. At like 8:30, I'd been going for almost 12 hours straight, getting ready, taping all these fights, writing all of them up, getting ready to put on a good show for you guys. And because of that, got a little tired around an hour before showtime. I still had to write up one of the fights. So I was like, okay, I got to get some coffee in me. And then I got some water on backup after I'm done with the coffee. So we're going to be ready to go here tonight. We're going to be amped up. We got my guy Lou Betcha in the room, ladies and gentlemen, saying, "Oi, what's up, Lou?" And he is saying, "Weezy, a horse called Uncle Heavy is running in the Preakness. How much are you betting on him? And is it all of the money or just almost all of the money?" It's probably going to be almost all of the money. Any kind of uncle usually has a plus EV handle in any kind of a horse race. Uncle anything. Even Uncle Anesthesia, the old album by Screaming Trees, probably their best album ever because the word uncle was in it. So any kind of a horse with the word uncle in it, your Uncle Weezy's going to be betting heavy on it for sure. We got Cuddles Knickerbocker in the room saying, "Oi!" We got TH saying, "What up, Weezy?" We got Dazfile saying, "No, not a week off." Spoken like somebody that doesn't create content constantly. I love weeks off, man. Gives me a chance to kind of look at the process, relax a little bit, not have to worry about being on camera 12 hours every week, and just kind of figure out, life in general. Getting a new dog, by the way, you guys, on Friday, getting dropped off over here. We got he's a Spanish Mastiff, a little over 1 year old. We're going to have a dog running around this house again. It's been long enough without a dog. I've properly mourned the loss of my Rottweiler, Bootsy Collins. So don't know what we're naming them yet. Let me know if you guys got any suggestions in the chat. Looking at maybe Hugo as a name. Looking at maybe, what was the other one that Sonny had? Something that, shit, I forgot already. But either way, we've got some names that we think would be pretty cool, but we got to figure it out. We got K-Dog in the room saying, "Oi, T.O. Weezy, weak card, but still here for the breakdown. Appreciate you." Not the best card, that's for sure. We got Dazfile saying, "Congrats on the 7 ass shavings." Thank you, my man. We got Steve Gregory in the room saying, "Could smell the Paco Rabanne wafting off that smoking jacket out here on the West Coast." Yeah, man, there's no Paco Rabanne on the coat. It is just a regular smoking jacket. There's no cologne on this. I promise you, Steve, but we're going to be smelling like roses after we stack cash tickets like flapjacks on this card. We got Lou Betcha saying, "Yeah, Ribovic apparently wasn't getting paid by the hour. He came in there and fought like he was double parked, that's for sure." Jester in the room saying, "What's up, Unc? Appreciate you, man. Appreciate you, Jester." We got Fight Talk Only saying, "Oh, yes. What up, T.O. Easy? How you doing, man? All is well, brother. It's Tuesday night, getting ready to break down some fights here." We got Jester saying St. Louis was a blast, so much so, just got tickets to the Kentucky card June 8th. There you go, Jester. Got to go to as many live cards as possible, and I'm sure Louisville, Kentucky will be a really good one. We got Lou Betcha saying Brady illustrated how many times Peterson has done a certain thing to him. Yeah, I mean, like me and Brady, we've discussed this so many times, and here we are again in the year of our Lord 2024 talking about how this guy served us once again. Weezy shaving ass like a Greek barber. There you go, Pickle Kush. What's up, dude? We got Josh saying, is that a silk robe, Weezy? This is, I don't know if it's silk, to be honest with you, but it is nice finery. This is from Marshall Fields back in the 40s or 50s. This smoking jacket actually belonged to my grandfather. Cup of coffee in the big time. There we go, man. Real Fight Pig saying Rousey is a great name. Rousey. Yeah, but for a male dog, I don't know about it, but it's not a bad one. I'd love to hear you getting a new doggo, Weezy. Beautiful, man. Yes, sir. The time has come, my man. The time has come. We got Jacques Tits for the pup's name. That would be pretty good, dude. We got Cuban Assassin saying Winslow is a great name for a dog, or maybe Peterson. Definitely not Peterson. Oh my God, definitely not naming my dog after Keith Peterson. Congratulations on the new dog, Unc. That's awesome. I appreciate you guys. We got Christ, enough talking to nobodies already. Says fourth density. Thanks for hanging out. We got Prince of Mischief saying, oh, yes, this week I'm taking it slow, so I go into the break smiling. Best of luck. And that's what we got to do, you guys. We're going to put in the work right now. We're going to break down all 12 of these fights so that we can go into the week off with a little momentum, enjoy the winning week a little bit before having to dive right back into the next week's card. So let's put in that work. Let's figure out how to make some money. My guy Pepe Sylvia in the room saying, what's good, King? Good to see you hanging out in here, Pepe. Appreciate you, one of the top content creators, top MMA bettors going out there. Appreciate you hanging out live for the show here. And what about James Krause? I don't know. I'm not naming my dog after James Krause either, man. That's for sure. Have no name recs for the dog, but did call a short Scottish carpenter Shetland Tony on the job site last week. There you go. Tony's a good name. Tony's a very good name. Maybe it'd be Antonio, and we could call him El Kukui Tony for short or something like that. Let's see. All right, you guys, let's go to these fights. I'm going to share my screen with you guys, and I have got the advanced stats up here. I have got my probability stats up here. If you guys have not checked out the Patreon or the Dub Club for the probability package, $25 a month gets you access to the betting template, the over-under template, the advanced matchup template, and the in-depth UFC stats for both fighters. And we have that for every fight on every card, for every card of the year. It's going to give you some fantastic divisional analytics, how the fighter stats stack up to those divisional analytics. Are they above average, below average, right on average? All the stats, all the fight breakdowns. You're going to get all of these breakdowns that you see here. Like we're going to start talking about Demopoulos versus Ducote, and you're going to get a full fight breakdown with picks going for all the fights on the card every single week. It's $25 a month. It's a great way to support my work, and it's going to give you a lot of opportunities to find plus EV bets as you comb through these spreadsheets every week. As I enter the lines into the spreadsheets, you're going to find bets that stick out, that not only are underpriced according to the lines, but also match up with your stylistic read of the fight. It's going to help you make better decisions when you make your bets. So please consider joining the Patreon, joining the Dub Club, and helping support the work that I work so hard to put out for you guys here for free on YouTube every single week. But get access to the behind the scenes stuff here, all the numbers on the spreadsheets, and the subscriber only show going forward that I'm doing with DFS by the numbers that you guys know as Brady. Brady and I will be going live every Wednesday night for subscribers only of this probability package to break down all the plus EV bets on the card. Please consider joining that Patreon and supporting the work. But if you don't want to do that, please consider hitting the thumbs up. Please consider leaving me a comment down below. Please consider subscribing to the channel so you don't miss out on any of the great content here. But let's get into it. Let's start talking about this very first fight of the night, which is going to be Vanessa Little Monster Demopoulos going up against Emily Ducote. And Greece, stand up. Here we go. Let me get these stats up here on the screen for you guys. Oh, wait, no, not that one. This one. This will be easier. There we go. So Greece, stand up. The fighting pride of this historic nation that gave so many gifts to the world. Little monster Vanessa Demopoulos steps into the octagon trying to improve her UFC record to 5-2. Vanessa's hot right now, having won 4 of her last 5 fights, and she's coming off a unanimous decision win over Kanako Murata back in October of 2023. She cashed as a plus 250 underdog in that fight. Now, did she really win the fight, or did the judges just say that she did? I'll leave that up to you guys. I mean, it was a somewhat close fight. I thought Kanako should have gotten the nod, but this is the UFC. This is MMA, and these judges sometimes do things that are completely unpredictable, and that one was pretty unpredictable for a lot of people. But before that win over Murata as a plus 250 underdog, she lost the unanimous decision to Karolina Kowalkiewicz. She was a small plus 110 underdog in that spot. And that's a fight where she missed weight by 1.5 pounds. Vanessa's 4 UFC wins come against ladies with a combined UFC record of 5 wins and 14 losses. So she hasn't beaten any high-level competition, but her losses come against experienced veterans like Karolina Kowalkiewicz and JJ Aldrich on short notice, and that was up at 125 pounds. Vanessa will be squaring off against Emily Ducote, who is 13-8 as a professional, and 2-2 thus far in the UFC. And I forgot to put the banner up here so that you guys have the odds on the screen. So 2-2 thus far in the UFC is Emily Ducote. She's got wins over Jessica Penne by a 29-28 unanimous decision on 2 scorecards. One of them was 30-27, and she was a minus 165 favorite in that spot. And then she also got a unanimous decision victory over Ashley Yoder as a minus 400 favorite. Ducote's losses come against Angela Hill by a 30-27 unanimous decision. That fight really wasn't close at all. And as a minus 125 favorite, she lost against Lupi Godinez. She was a plus 130 underdog against Lupi Godinez, and she lost that fight. And right here, we are going to see that Emily Ducote is a massive minus 340 favorite over this woman, Vanessa Demopoulos, the plus 280 underdog. So, yeah, man, in order for Emily Ducote to cash this bet, ladies and gentlemen, she's going to have to beat that girl, okay? Minus 340. Let's talk about it. Let's see what we can find here, you guys. So let's first start talking about the lady on the screen, Vanessa Demopoulos, and the advantages that she has in this fight. First, obviously, her Tapology picture. I mean, way better, way cooler, way more iconic. In the top 3, I would say, with Makwan Amirkhani and my guy Shamil Abdurrahimov, the very handsome Shamil Abdurrahimov. Vanessa also has the UFC experience advantage in this spot over Ducote. She's got 2 more fights, 17 more minutes of octagon time. Vanessa has the power advantage. She throws punches with hate in her heart. She has 1 knockdown in 6 UFC fights. She's landing one on 0.3% of her significant strikes, and that's above average for the division. And she does have rare power for a strawweight due to how hard she throws. The submission grappling advantage. Vanessa isn't a good wrestler or minute winner in the grappling exchanges, but she is very aggressive with her submission attempts. She's 4-0 to the submission as a pro. She's a BJJ black belt, and she can find subs from the top or the bottom. If you aren't confident in your submission defense, there's no reason to go to the ground with Vanessa on purpose. Just ask Silvana Gomez Juarez about that. But Emily Ducote, she's going to be 5 years younger than Vanessa. She's going to have a 4-inch reach advantage over Vanessa. She has the overall experience advantage. She's the younger fighter with the overall experience advantage. She's got 6 more fights and 110 more minutes of cage time in 2 more years as a pro than Vanessa does. Emily's going to have the striking advantage. She's got the far better UFC striking metrics when it comes to winning minutes at distance striking range. Her distance striking differential is better. Ducote's is even, while Vanessa's is minus 3.5 per minute. Her accuracy is better than Vanessa's at 48%, while Vanessa's at 35%. The defense, 61% for Emily Ducote, only 45% for Vanessa. So Vanessa's very hittable at range. And the distance strikes landed per minute, you got Ducote landing 6.7 and you got Vanessa landing 4.2. Emily's going to have that 4-inch reach advantage as well, and she throws more volume as at range as well. So it should also be noted that Emily has 93% takedown defense, so she can keep this fight standing where she has the reach, the volume, the accuracy, and the defense advantages. All signs point to Emily winning the minutes at distance striking range in this fight. And the strength of schedule advantage, that goes to Emily Ducote as well. She's faced the more experienced fighters overall. Neither fighter has impressive wins at the UFC level as of yet, though. But this is a fun fight to open up the card. These ladies are fairly well matched, but the stylistic components of this matchup really do funnel the likely result towards Ducote by decision. So Vanessa should be the better moment winner in this spot, in my opinion, at least. She does have more power in her hands and a more opportunistic submission game. She's also 4-1 so far in the UFC strawweight division, so she's winning fights that go to decision, so the judges like how aggressive that she is. And Ducote's the much cleaner striker, though. She manages range well. She has good defense and durability and a much better distance striking differential than Vanessa. She should be able to win the minutes at range, stop the takedown attempts at distance. As long as Emily avoids getting hit with a bomb or giving up her back or her neck in a scramble, she should cruise to a victory by decision. But Vanessa is extremely durable and explosive. So in my opinion, Vanessa Demopoulos is always worth a poke on that finish-only prop because she's extremely durable and she's explosive wherever the fight goes. So she's usually the fighter that has more finishing equity. And since a lot of times you find her as an underdog, you can get that prop at plus money more times than not. I mean, this fight probably goes to decision 7-8 times out of 10 on average. So, that fight, that bet isn't going to cash or not cash, probably less than 20% of the time. But either way, I think it's a safe play. But this time I'm going to be going for this pick with Emily Ducote to win by decision. And there we go, Gardenia. Ducote by decision, but never count out the Greek girl in Vanessa Demopoulos, the little monster. She's got power. She's got a tricky submission game. And the judges seem to like her when fights wind up being close. So laying juice on Ducote could be a little bit risky here. I would much rather lay the juice on her decision prop and count on that. First of all, on Emily not really being much of a finisher, especially at this level, and Vanessa's durability. So I'd much rather get the minus 180, minus 185 on Ducote by decision than lay the minus 350 or whatever it is on the money line right now. Let's see here. We got Ducote, easiest fight to read on the card for sure. We got Remdog saying, I think she won the Murata fight, but lost the Fry fight. Yeah, I mean, they're close fights. They are close fights. Speaking of grease, Vanessa has had some greasy decisions. Feel like it plays out like the Carolina fight. Yeah, man, I kind of do too. I think that Carolina was the much better. She throws much more volume at range. She's very durable herself, Carolina. So it felt like Carolina by decision all day there too. And this is the way I'm feeling about this as well. We got Brandon Olson saying, "Oi, appreciate the content, Unk. What is up, Brandon?" We got Gerald Gardner in the room saying, "Oh, yes, I'm still awake. Double espresso finally helped. I'm here waiting for the ass shaving of the week. I got my coffee too. I've been busting my ass all day getting ready for the show, so I got to keep myself up as well, my man." And Brandon Olson saying, "Thoughts on looking different capping for 302 with the new gloves? Read Rude Boys Brown comments on it and made me question it. I'll have to check about that. That's something I will look into for next week, but this week we're working on these fights right now, so I will leave that one until next week. But yeah, well, if there's new gloves and hopefully it takes less eye pokes, we'll see what the fighters are saying about it and see how that, how that dovetails with our capping of the fights. But let's move on to the next one here, as we've got Heili Alateng at plus 128 going up against Kleydson Rodrigues, who's a minus 148 favorite in this fight. The fight doesn't go to decision here at plus money at plus 155. So we got the stats up here on the screen for you guys as they load up. Let me kind of just fatten these up for you guys here so we can look at them a little bit better. There we go. Okay, so Kleidson's younger and bigger. He's 4 years younger. He's 1 inch taller, and he's got a 1 inch reach advantage. But it's Heili Alateng, who's got a lot more professional experience. He's got 16 more professional fights. He's got about 190 more minutes of pro cage time, and he's also got 4 more fights at the UFC level, 70 more minutes in the UFC cage. And also, Heili Alateng's fights all taking place at 135, while Kleydson Rodrigues is a 125er who was irresponsible with his weight cutting and has been forced up to 135. And he made his 135 debut against Farid Basharat. You know, to go from Shannon Ross and CJ Vergara to Farid Basharat up a weight class is just a massive step up in competition. And Kleydson did not handle it well. And now he's going up against a guy that's not nearly as dangerous or as clinical as Farid Basharat. But Heili's a veteran, man. I mean, this guy's got 27 fights. He's 4-2-1 in the UFC. So he's winning more fights than he's losing up at this level against a pretty solid level of competition with a 500 UFC record. The combined record of Heili Alateng's opponents are 23-23, while Kleidson's fighting some less experienced guys at 6-6, but you add up the records of the guys that he's beaten, Shannon Ross, and they're 0-3. So Heili's up a weight class. He's more experienced overall. He's more experienced at the UFC level, and he's also a guy that lands with a ton of power. Kleydson Rodrigues is a high-volume guy, but Heili Alateng kind of welcomes that because he's very durable, and he throws a heavy overhand right that lands hard. So if you are getting a little bit too overzealous with your output against a guy like Heili, he is a guy that can catch you with heavy counters. And Heili Alateng is going to be the better wrestler here as well. Heili's an excellent wrestler, but it's maddening because he just doesn't use it. This guy has only attempted takedowns really in the 3rd round of his fights. He's never gotten a takedown in round 1 or round 2 of any of his fights. And I believe all but one of his fights have gotten out of the 1st round. So it's not like, you know, he's just flatlining dudes early, and then that's the reason why he's not trying to shoot for takedowns. This guy just waits to wrestle. So a guy like Kleydson Rodrigues, who we saw lose a ton of minutes on the ground in the CJ Vergara fight, I would be so much more likely to try to bet Heili Alateng at plus money here, due to the fact that if I thought he wrestled, I thought that he could land the bigger shots on the feet and win the minutes on the mat, then I would love to take a shot at that plus 128 that he's available at right now. But I can't count on Heili to wrestle. I just can't. Maybe in round 3 he will, but if he's sitting out there doing what he normally does, which is throwing 9.6 distance strikes per minute spent at distance, while a guy like Kleydson is out there throwing 17 distance strike attempts per minute, I know that Kleidson's going to be the much busier guy. I know that Kleidson's going to throw a lot more kicks and is probably going to have a little bit better distance management due to that extra inch of height, that extra inch of reach that he has, the fact that he's 4 years younger and a little more spry and athletic than Heili Alateng is. Well, Alateng's like this, you know, built like a fire hydrant, you know, very, very strong and powerful, can pick you up and throw you down if he's wrestling you. I kind of feel like Heili needs to win moments here to be successful, and Kleydson Rodrigues needs to win minutes to be successful. And I think both of these guys kind of have the tools to do it, but there's a couple of things that have me leaning towards the Heili Alateng side here. Number one, he's more experienced as a professional. Number 2, he's got 4 more fights and 70 more minutes of UFC cage time. Number 3, that cage time comes against UFC bantamweights, while we've seen Kleydson against UFC flyweights mostly. And number 4, I think Heili is the more powerful striker at range, and that Kleydson will leave some opportunities, as he only has a 52.6% distance striking defense thus far at distance in his 3 UFC fights. So I like Alateng to potentially win some minutes in the 3rd round with his wrestling. And if he could land the bigger shots in the 1st or 2nd round, that should be enough for him to win a decision. But I also do believe that as hard as Heili hits, and Kleydson being used to being hit by 25ers instead of 35ers, that I also do believe that a Heili Alateng finish is on the table here, because this guy does hit extremely hard. And, I just think the likelihood that he would find that big shot early in fights would be so much higher if he would learn to mix in his wrestling in all 3 rounds instead of just waiting to round number 3 to do it. So I'm still kind of waiting for Heili Alateng to look like a better coached fighter, because he's been at Fight Ready now for at least 3 fights. I know he was with them for the Kroom fight, the Al and Helliger fight, and the Gutierrez fight. Now, I don't know if he was with them yet for the Gustavo Lopez fight, but I'd like to see that trademark Fight Ready coaching crew there that's really good at putting together smart game plans for good fighters start to tell Heili, hey, man, this is MMA. This isn't just about waiting, sitting back and hoping that you land the bigger shot. Eventually, there are going to come times where you need to find ways to win minutes in order to win decisions. You got to bank a round or 2 every once in a while with this skill that you have with your wrestling that you seem to be leaving in your back pocket on purpose until round number 3. So I am going to pick Heili Alateng to win this fight, and I'm going to pick him to win it by 2nd round knockout. Because I do believe that Kleydson has still got a lot to, I still believe that this guy is a flyweight, and that he will be much better suited down there. And if Alateng can find a way to start wrestling a little bit early, then that's going to open up that big overhand right for him. He can fake a shot and then throw the overhand right and land it. Or if he's faking shots earlier in the fight, it's going to get his opponents to start thinking about the wrestling, which is going to leave those openings to land the big shots on the feet once you get your opponent thinking about the takedown. So a lot of things that I'd like to see Heili Alateng change in the way that he approaches fights and he approaches minute winning. But I still like his moment winning potential. I like his experience advantage, his strength to schedule advantage, and the fact that he's been fighting bantamweights his whole career, while Kleidson's been fighting flyweights. So Kleidson's got a lot to prove here, in my opinion. I don't think it's smart to lay juice on him here. I think Alateng is the play. I think it's dog or pass on the money line. And I'm picking Alateng Heili to actually get a finish here in the 2nd round via KO. We got Dennis Kranovich saying, oi, late night coffee by Weezy, the sacrifices he makes to shave ass. Appreciate you, man. We got Colby Saul is in the room saying, oh, yes, what's up, Colby? We got PC Strickland MMA, what is up, PC, saying, Weezy, found your deep house mix and honestly listen to it like 7 times a week. You're the man, brother. Dude, appreciate that. Yeah, that I didn't start this YouTube channel to do MMA. I started it when COVID started, to just start posting mixes, me doing DJ mixes with these turntables behind me of my house music collection, and some hip hop mixes as well, but never got to doing that because we've had some problems with the sound equipment. But either way, appreciate that you like the house music mixes as well as the MMA breakdowns, man. Appreciate that. And MMA Jackal saying, Uncle Weezy, what is up, MMA Jackal? 150 of you hanging out live between YouTube and Twitter. Hit that thumbs up, hit that subscribe button, leave me a comment down below, and let's start talking about this next fight, which is going to be Piera La Fiera Rodrigues at -220, squaring off against Ariane Soriso Carnelossi at +185. Fight doesn't go to decision here at +180 for this fight. Let's get these stats up on the screen for you guys. They are right here. Let me fatten up these lines here. Like an 80s disco party. Fat. There we go. All right, you guys, let's start talking about the trends for this fight after I get a little more coffee in me because I'm not bouncing off the walls enough. There we go. All right. Piera, 9-1 as a professional, 2-1 in the UFC so far. She's coming off the only loss of her professional career just over a year ago to Jillian Robertson. It was by second round armbar as a plus 110 underdog. Prior to that, she won 9 straight. She was the LFA strawweight champion, which got her the shot on Dana White's Contender Series, where she won an action-packed 29-28 unanimous decision over Valeska Machado, otherwise known as Tina Black. And she then won her first 2 UFC fights. It was a 29-28 unanimous decision over Kay Hansen. She was a 125 favorite in that fight and cashed. And then a 29-28 unanimous decision win over Sam Page Hughes as a minus 170 favorite. Piera was very angry about the stoppage in the Jillian Robertson fight by notorious drunken ref Keith Peterson, because she did not tap to that armbar. But Keith, who had lost his balance due to too many cans of Keystone Light, stopped the fight in error, and Piera lost her undefeated record as a result. But Piera is going to be on a 1-year layoff, and she is taking on a fighter who's on a 2-year layoff in Ariane Carnelossi. Ariane is 14-3 as a professional. She's 2-2 in the UFC. She's coming off a 30-27 unanimous decision loss to Lupe Godinez, where she was taken down 8 times and controlled for 13.5 minutes. Prior to that, she won by third-round rear naked choke versus Estela Nunez as a minus 140 favorite, and by second-round ground and pound finish over Na Liang in an awesome back-and-forth fight as a minus 225 favorite there. Ariane made her UFC debut against Angela Hill, and that was a great back-and-forth fight until Hill cut Ariane with the elbow in the third round, and the fight was stopped due to that cut. Carnelossi had back surgery, thus the 2-year layoff, and she is a plus 158 underdog to Piera Rodrigues, the minus 183 favorite. That was at the time of writing, and now we got Piera Rodrigues, a minus 220 favorite. So Piera catching the steam from the bettors here in Vegas. We got Piera is going to be 1 inch taller. She's going to have a 2-inch reach advantage, so we got some size on the Piera side. She's got the power advantage, in my opinion, on the feet. Now, both of these ladies have power. Piera, though, is 5-0 to the KO, and Ariane's 9-1 to the KO. But the way Piera fights, she kind of just stands there. She barely moves, and she kind of just invites you into range where she will land her counters. Ariane is a pressure fighter. She's always coming forward, so I see this fight being a car crash where Ariane explodes into range and both ladies are landing power shots. Both ladies are durable too, so I see the striking exchanges being attritional and damage-inducing. I got Piera with the grappling advantage here. Now, neither lady has the most impressive grappling efficiency rating. However, Piera is the more active offensive wrestler, and she does a better job in takedowns. So I see her as being the fighter more likely to initiate the wrestling exchanges and win minutes with her grappling. And I got the strength of schedule advantage as well going to Piera Rodrigues. At the UFC level, Piera has fought and beaten the fighters with the better win-loss ratios. Ariane's 2 UFC wins are over Na Liang and Estela Nunez, who have combined UFC record of 0 wins and 8 losses. While Piera's wins over Sam Hughes and Kay Hansen, they do rate better than Ariane's 2 UFC wins. Now, Ariane Carnelossi's advantage is she's got the overall experience advantage. 7 more fights, 20 more minutes of octagon time. She's got the UFC experience advantage. 1 more fight, 7 more minutes of octagon time. Ariane's the better finisher. She's got a 78% career finish rate compared to 56% for Piera. And Ariane has a couple of submission wins to her credit, while Piera has only finished fights by way of knockout. Ariane has finished both of her UFC wins over Bums Na Liang and Estela Nunez, while Piera is yet to finish at the UFC level. And in my opinion, the optics advantage goes to Ariane Carnelossi here because Ariane pressures forward and throws bombs. I think the judges will appreciate her commitment to violence here, and I think her forward pressure and output advantages could be enough to win the minutes and moments at range in what should be a very close fight. So this one is going to be a ding-dong Donnybrook of a women's strawweight scrap. Ariane crashes forward with pressure, throwing bombs, and Piera welcomes that and loves to make her opponents walk on to counters. Both ladies are on long layoffs, so that's something that brings some unknowns with it. Back surgery for Ariane is very concerning, and Piera has taken a year off in her own right. Why, I don't know. I think these ladies are very well matched, and their styles should ensure an all-action back-and-forth war. I like the size, the grappling, and the strikes and the slight strength of schedule advantages at the UFC level on the Piera Rodrigues side. While Ariane's more experienced, she's the more dangerous finisher, and her pressure on the feet will look good to the judges. This one is hard to call. I think the fight doesn't go to decision at plus 180 is interesting. Both ladies are really durable, but both throw with serious power and with hate in their hearts. And due to the ring rust on both sides, maybe we see a finish here. But in all likelihood, I mean, I actually do think this one, we can trust both ladies' durability. And I think that this is a war that goes to decision. I think it goes to decision, but I wouldn't be laying that kind of juice that it does because I'm telling you, these girls are going to meet in the middle and they're going to throw bombs. So I think that that fight doesn't go to decision. While it might not cash, I think it's going to be one of those bets where if it doesn't cash, at the end of the fight, you're going to be like, God damn, I made the right bet there. It just didn't fall. It just didn't go my way. But yeah, I'm going to lean to the Piera side ever so slightly in this fight, you guys. I think they're both very live. But with that back surgery for Carnelossi and the 2-year layoff, I think the smart play is to go Piera Rodrigues by decision. But man, plus 180 for fight doesn't go. The way that I think that these two are going to fight, I think that that's a really good bet. Let's see what you guys are saying in the chat. We've got Dennis saying, wow, had no idea you were into mixing. Do you have a set of DJs or DDJs? If so, what kind? Yeah, it's just house music that I have on my channel. There's only 2 mixes, and they came right at like a couple of months into COVID, you know, when I was like not leaving the house because everything was shut down here in Chicago, and drinking way too much. Those were weird times, man. But yeah, house music sets. Some of my favorite DJs are some of the classic Chicago house DJs like Mark Farina, Miles Maida, Daryl Woodson, Michael Serafini, John Curley from the old Shelter days. There's a lot of them, but yeah, house music is what I mostly have here. I loved unranked women's UFC. Those are always fun fights, man. We got Let's Dance in the room saying, oh, yes. And he's got the flapjack stack saying, Na Liang you can exclude as a win. I know, man. And Piera early money line seemed good, but I wouldn't lay the current lines. I feel the same way there, man. I wouldn't lay minus 220. Maybe minus 150. I would feel all right laying. But I think that this is going to be a fun fight, and I kind of like violence here, and I might wind up getting to that bet. But let's move on to the next fight, which is going to be Abus Magomedov, and he is going to be squaring off against Warlley Alves. We've got Magomedov's a big favorite here at minus 285. We got Warlley Alves on the comeback at plus 245. And we got the fight does not go to decision here. Juice to the tits at minus 325 for this fight. Let me just resize this row to 40. Give you a quick look once again at one of my favorite Tapology pictures. Vanessa, Little Monster, Demopoulos, Grease, stand up. But let's talk about this fight some more. Abus Magomedov, Warlley Alves. So let's first start talking about. Oh, and did I even make my pick? Yeah, I did. All right, good. Let's first start talking about the trends for this fight. Abus came into the UFC with a lot of hype. He was 24-4 as a professional when he made his debut. He's Dagestani, so he has that wrestling pedigree, but he's also a talented and dangerous striker. He ran through poor Dustin Stoltzfus in his UFC debut as a minus 275 favorite, punting Dustin's head into the cheap seats and taking only 19 seconds to do it. The pre-UFC hype combined with that performance set up a main event fight in his next fight against Sean Strickland. That was in July of 2023, a fight Abus lost as a plus 125 underdog. He was knocked out in the second round there after gassing out after the first round. It was a disappointing performance, to say the least, and he followed it up with a 29-28 unanimous decision loss to Caio Bahayo, and he was a plus 240 underdog, where he got outstruck by Caio at distance 50-38 in that fight, basically over about 13 minutes of distance striking time. And Abus faded in the third round of that fight as well. So now Abus has taken a huge step down in competition after fighting the former champ and the undefeated in the UFC Bahayo to fight 15-fight UFC veteran Warlley Alves. Warlley is 8-7 in the UFC. He's lost 5 of his last 7 fights. Warlley's last win came against Munir Lazez in Abu Dhabi, where he cashed as a plus 200 underdog via first-round body kick KO. His last 4 losses come against quality competition in Randy Brown by second-round triangle choke, Jeremiah Wells by second-round knockout, Nicholas Dalby by split decision, and Ikram Aliskerov by first-round knockout. Warlley disappointed as a favorite in 3 of those 4 losses. He was minus 145 versus Brown. He was minus 240 versus Wells. And he was minus 135 versus Dalby. So keep that in mind now, that he was favorites against all of those studs. And now, he's up at 185. He's a massive underdog to Abus Magomedov, whose best UFC win is against Dustin Stoltzfus. But Abus is the bigger dude here. We got to keep in mind that Warlley Alves is a career 170 guy. Now he moved up to 185 to fight Aliskerov on short notice. And now here he is fighting another 185er in Abus Magomedov, who's going to be 3 inches taller than him, who's going to have a 6-inch reach advantage over him. Abus also has the pro experience advantage with 10 more fights and 1 more year as a pro fighter. He's got the striking advantage, in my opinion, because Abus is dangerous at distance. He's much taller and longer than Warlley. He's 14-2 to the knockout as a pro, while Warlley is 4-3 to the KO. And the threat of the wrestling opens up big kicks for him. And Abus is the better wrestler. Magomedov is Dagestani, and he does have that wrestling in his back pocket, but mostly he uses that wrestling to be the fighter that dictates where the fight takes place, so that he can kind of find the weakness of his opponent. If his opponent's weak on the mat, he will mix in that wrestling. If his opponent's weak on the feet, he'll use his wrestling in reverse to keep it standing and out kickbox his opponent. Now, Warlley Alves is slightly younger than Abus. He's 4 months younger. He's got the UFC experience advantage here. 12 more fights at the UFC level, 2 more hours of UFC octagon time. He's got a great guillotine choke. It's Warlley's signature submission. And if he locks onto that choke, it's going to be a problem for anybody in the division. And the strength of schedule advantage goes to Warlley Alves. Even though Abus is more experienced overall, it's Warlley who has the high-level experience advantage. And his UFC wins are way better than Abus's career wins as a pro. So both of these guys are on losing streaks right now. Abus, a 2-fight streak, dropping fights to Caio Bahayo and Sean Strickland. And for Warlley, it's a 3-fight losing streak, losing against Jeremiah Wells, Nick Dalby, and Ikram Aliskerov. Warlley has moved up from 170 to 185, and he didn't look good at all in his debut against Aliskerov. And now he gets another Russian Sambo stylist here in Magomedov. The best quality about Magomedov's game is his ability to dictate where the fight takes place. If he wants it to stay standing, it stays there. He can keep it standing if his opponents want to wrestle, and he can get it to the ground if his opponents want to strike. Abus is taller, longer, more experienced, and he's been the slightly more effective finisher as a professional. Warlley is more experienced at the UFC level, and he's fought the better brand of competition, and his guillotine choke is not to be trifled with. Abus is around 75% implied to win this fight, and I get it. Warlley has not looked great lately. He's up a weight class at 185 because he doesn't want to cut weight anymore. He's giving up size, length, and experience in this matchup, and Abus just has the higher ceiling. That being said, this fight seems closer to me than the line implies. I do think Abus is a little better everywhere, and I love the size advantage here, but conditioning is very important, and Abus is very front-loaded. If he doesn't get you out of there early, he fades late, even in slow-paced fights. So I do think a live entry on Alves after round one, if he isn't getting rinsed, isn't the worst idea, because Warlley is very aggressive, powerful, and he does have an opportunistic finish game, and he's fought and beaten the better guys. I'm going to lean to the Abus side here, but Alves by sub at plus 850, that has my interest here, especially if Abus gasses late and starts shooting sloppy takedowns because Warlley's kicking him in the body or in the legs. We could see him latch onto that guillotine and finish the fight. So I'm not laying the juice on Abus here. Might make a small Alves by sub play, but that's about it. But even though I'm not encouraging it, I am picking Abus Magomedov to win this fight by first round KO because let's face it, he is a front-loaded fighter. He is much bigger than Warlley. He's definitely fought two very tough guys in Strickland and Caio back-to-back. And now that he's getting the step down in competition against a guy who's stepping up in weight class, I think that this is a good get-right spot for Magomedov. And I think that he'll win by his most likely win condition, which is an early knockout. Let's see what you guys are saying in the chat here. Let's see here. We've got Genova in the room saying, shout out Mark Farina. He's got that mushroom in there because of the Mushroom Jazz collection by Mark Farina, of which Genova 7 is featured on Mushroom Jazz 3. Is it, Genova? Is it Mushroom Jazz 3 that you're on, or is it Mushroom Jazz 2? I forget which one, man, but I know that Genova 7 is one of these producers that Mark has had on Mushroom Jazz before. John Dong in the room saying what's up to the MMA Jackal. We got Gabriel Killian in the room saying this fight probably comes down to whoever has the hog advantage. Got to pay close attention at weigh-ins because these guys are going to swing dicks. I believe that. We got Abus hit like a bus. A bus. You got that. You got that right, man. A short bus, says Gabriel Killian. We got Dogfather saying, hey, Uncle Weezy, have you been mewing? You look great. I'm working on that, dude. I'm getting that mouth guard thing. Something I'm definitely trying to work on. I want that Ryan Garcia face mewing muscle thing going. But, you these are all works in progress. Your Uncle Weezy is a work in progress, Dogfather, but I try to get a little bit better every day. Like fine wine in the cellar, just getting better with age. That's what I'm trying to do, Dogfather. Appreciate the kind words, brother. We got Pepe Sylvia with I don't know what those icons are. Maybe mewing icons. It could be mewing. Thoughts on this under? Let me look at what we've got numbers-wise here on the probability stats package for this fight. Where is it? There it is. So under 1.5 at minus 135. Alves has been under 1.5, 6 of 15 times. Magomedov in half of his fights. We're overpaying about 20% when we compare the price of the line at 57% to, let me do this. 110. There we go. Let's just change this to 23, maybe. There we go. Now it's a little more visible. Let me get this off the screen. Minus 135. I mean, I don't want to pay juice for an under 1.5, but I think it probably hits. I mean, Magomedov is very front loaded, and Warlley has been finished in a lot of his recent losses. And I also believe that for Warlley, the finish condition could be an early guillotine choke, or it could be a late finish as well. I mean, my prop template likes the pricing a little better at minus 325 for the fight doesn't go than it does the under 1.5 at minus 135. But neither one of them are phenomenal bets according to my prop template. It's actually leaning just because of the data towards the overs, but stylistically, I don't like the overs. So that's one I probably won't be touching the time props on at all. But my stylistic read is that probably an under 2.5 might be the best way to play this one. Mushroom Jazz 8. Oh, damn. Okay. Plus some of the online mixes that he does. All right. Nice, man. And thanks for the hard work, Weezy. Much respect. Same to you, Genova. Appreciate you, brother. We got Bad Boy Viv saying this card is mid in my impression, in my opinion, betting wise. I agree, man. Gerald saying Abu's KO. Keep this simple. Alves is chinny. Yes, sir. And Pepe is leaning the over 1.5 rounds here. Yeah. And my prop template definitely likes the over here a lot more than it likes the under, just in terms of pricing. And how that pricing relates to the divisional benchmarks and to the combined performance of both fighters. But, I mean, that would be a butt-puckering over. But then again, they all are, Pepe. So, I don't know, man. I think I'll be staying away from the time props in that one. But let's move on to a fight between Tamires Vidal and Melissa Gatto. We've got Melissa Gatto as a big favorite here. She's minus 305. Tamires Vidal plus 245 on the comeback. Fight doesn't go to decision here. Pretty juiced for a women's flyweight fight at minus 115. So, let me first of all fatten up these numbers for you guys here right quick. I did it for most of the fights, so this will hopefully be the last time that I have to do it. But there you go. Much better look at the stats for you guys here. And let's first start talking about the trends in this fight. Now, Melissa Gatto was supposed to fight Victoria Ducote on March 30th, but Ducote was forced out with a medical issue on weigh-in day. And Tamires Vidal was originally slated to fight Heili Cohen. Now, Heili Cohen had to pull out. So now Melissa is stepping in for Heili Cohen here, taking this fight on 2 weeks' notice. And she had been training for a fight at the end of March against Ducote. So Melissa Gatto is 2-2 thus far in the UFC. Wins over Victoria Leonardo in her UFC debut as a pick'em in that fight. After Victoria broke her arm and the fight was stopped after the second round. And then Sijara Eubanks was another win for Gatto. She got that one by third round body kick as a plus 140 favorite, plus 140 underdog. So she cashed as a dog in that fight too. But she's currently on a 2-fight losing streak. She lost a close 29-28 unanimous decision to Tracy Cortez. She was a plus 110 underdog in that fight, which was in May of 2022. And then she lost a close split decision to Ariane Lipski. That was 10 months ago. And she was a minus 240 favorite in that fight. So she really let bettors down who were laying juice on her. Excuse me. Now, Melissa steps in on short notice to fight the 25-year-old Tamires Vidal, who's 7-2 as a professional and 1-1 in the UFC. Tamires won her UFC debut against Ramona Pascual by first-round flying knee to the liver. That was in November of 2022. Then she lost a split decision to Montserrat Rendon. She was a minus 250 favorite in that fight back in September of 2023. So massive letdown for the bettors who laid juice on her. So both of these ladies disappointed as huge favorites in their last fight, and both are coming off a loss. In Gatto's case, 2 losses. This fight is up at 135, up a weight class for Gatto, so that also needs to be taken into consideration. Melissa is a minus 305 favorite versus Tamires Vidal, the plus 245 underdog. So Melissa has got a 1-inch reach advantage. She's got the pro experience advantage with 3 more fights and 20 more minutes of cage time. She's got the UFC experience advantage with 2 more fights and 32 more minutes of octagon time. Melissa Gatto is the better finisher. She's got a better finish rate as a professional compared to Vidal at 75% compared to 58% for Vidal. Melissa Gatto is the better striker. She's the crisper, busier, and more technical striker. She's got a positive 2.8 distance striking differential with 46% accuracy and 61.5% defense. Those are all above average for the division. And she lands a knockdown on 0.5% of the significant strikes that she lands, and she's 2-0 to the knockout in the UFC. She's got the grappling advantage, does Melissa Gatto. Melissa's a BJJ black belt, and she's 4-0 to the submission in her career, while Vidal is 2-1. Melissa is dangerous from her back. She's a good scrambler and very aggressive when she's on the mat looking to finish fights. And Melissa also has the strength of schedule advantage in this spot, having fought and beaten the more experienced UFC opponents with the better win-loss ratios. Tamires Vidal advantages. She's 2 years younger, and she's the natural bantamweight. And I believe she's also fought up at 145 in the past. Now, Gatto is a flyweight, taking this up a weight class on short notice, so Vidal will be the bigger, thicker fighter here, thick with 2 C's. Now, this is a pretty cut and dry fight. Melissa Gatto is better everywhere except for size and age. Age isn't really even a factor because Melissa is still only 28 years old, and she's more experienced as a professional, and she's fought the better brand of competition. So I had no idea why Tamires Vidal was signed to the UFC. And while she's still only 25 and she has a good frame for a bantamweight, I still haven't seen any real skill out of her that leads me to believe she's going to win fights at this level. Gatto by KO actually has my attention this week. It opened at plus 850. It got bet down to plus 650. But even there, according to my betting template, it's got nice value. Gatto needs a win here, and the skill gap between these two is too large to ignore. So I'm going to pick Melissa Gatto to win this fight. And I think the skill gap is big enough that she winds up finishing this hoe second round by KO. What do you guys think? Let's see. Dogfather saying, yeah, hard to bet a total. Pretty much all Abus win equity is under. And yeah, Dogfather, the way I do it is like you can get to those Bet Rivers props where it'll be like Abus to win and under 1.5 rounds. And then you can kind of like play the under that way. And instead of paying minus 135, maybe you get plus money at plus 150 or plus 160. Then it's a lot more bettable. And you can lay less money to win more and just hope that Abus doesn't get finished early. But it's happened before, so who knows, man. Cayman Rider in the room saying, I think Murphy is a tad bit soy for Barboza. Murphy wants to fight a clean fight, but Barboza just won't let him. I can't wait to talk about that fight. It's going to be a good one. Pepe Silva saying, I think Gatto's speed will give Vidal issues, but the price is too wide. Vidal could have leg kicking success, especially against those neuro-ass legs that Melissa Gatto has. And tough to find a plus EV angle for this fight, so I'm passing. Oh, I am passing on this one, Pepe. Yeah, and like if you look at my betting template for this fight, it will show a nice plus EV bet. For Gatto by KO here. Big plus money numbers here. Plus 800 was the number, though. Now it's plus 650, so it's a lot different. But we get 650 there. Even there, it's a big-time plus EV bet. Both of Gatto's wins come by KO at the UFC level. And even if you count the, because most of her wins are by submission. But Gatto does hit pretty hard, and there could be a club and sub situation on the table here. So, I mean, it opened at plus 800. So my hope is that when DraftKings or Bet Online open these lines, I can find a Gatto KO around plus 800. Then I might throw a quarter unit on it, or even Gatto inside the distance at plus 125 is interesting. But at 650, I could put just such a small amount on it with a lot of upside, knowing that Gatto has knocked out 2 of her foes thus far. So interesting fight. But yeah, Melissa Gatto by KO. Bad Boy Viv is excited for the new pup. I am too, man. Male or female? Male. He is a male. And Noah Allen saying, if you really want to get Gatto Vidal, Gatto 55 strikes on Prize Picks seems reasonable. Yeah, that doesn't sound like too big of a number. Just got to hope that she doesn't get takedowns, and got to hope that the fight stays standing and goes at least 10 minutes, I would say. But if that happens, that one probably does hit, Noah. All right, let's move on to this next fight. And this one is something that I don't have stats on. I'll bring up the stats that I have just so you can see what Oumar C has against Trocoli here. But neither one of these guys is going to have any UFC experience thus far. Tokkos is stepping up on short notice. This fight was made this morning. Tokkos is a guy that fights over out of Killcliff FC. Really good friends with Brendan Allen, from what I understand. And he got his ass kicked on road to UFC by Ming Yang Zhang, who we saw get a UFC win over Brenson Hibero on a pay-per-view card a couple of months back. I believe it was in February. Yeah, that was a bad fight for him, but Min Yang Zhang has his head has got like 2 things in common with the Great Wall of China. 1, it's just as sturdy as the Great Wall of China. And 2, it can be seen from space. Just like you can see the Great Wall of China from space, like now that Min Yang Zhang is alive and living in China, that's the other thing that you can see from space is Min Yang Zhang's head. So Tokkos kind of went out when he fought Min Yang Zhang and went out like he was going to finish that dude, but that dude's got a brick for a head, and he kind of just, ate everything that Tokkos threw at him, and then wound up landing big shots and getting him out of there late in the first round, or maybe it was the second round. I forget. But either way, Oumar C is a wrestler, and a very good one at that. If you watch the tape on this guy, he doesn't mess around at distance striking range for long. He's always initiating the wrestling attacks. If he doesn't get the first one, he'll probably get the second one or the third one. And once he gets you down, he's position over submission. He will be patient. He will work enough to be able to stay on top and score points while he's there. And he'll patiently look to pass your guard. He will try to look to get to your back. And once he gets to your back, he'll be looking to choke you out or flatten you out and finish with ground and pound. So Oumar C is a very predictable fighter, in my opinion. We know what we're going to get out of this guy. When you watch the tape, you're going to see that this is a big, strong man with great conditioning who can wrestle for a full 3 rounds and who could be counted on not to fuck around at distance striking range if that's not his game. So a guy like Tokkos, who I've seen kind of just pressure forward and crash the pocket, I think he's probably going to walk onto a reactive double leg, get put on his ass, and I think Oumar C is probably going to beat him up on his way to a decision. But I need to look into Tokkos more. Simply not enough time for me today. We don't even have a betting line on this fight yet, as it was just made this morning. But my pick for the short term, with very little confidence, is going to be Oumar C to win by decision. But I need to look more into Tokkos and to the more recent fight since he lost against the man whose head is visible from space. So, I mean, we can just take that win or that loss and just kind of throw it out the window. No shame in that. You can't knock that dude out with a shovel. So we'll see if Tuco Tokkos, a good Greek kid there, can come out and be the second person of Greek descent to go out there and get a win, as the first could very well be Vanessa, Little Monster, Demopoulos, Greece, stand up. But yeah, we got 2 Greeks on the card. We got Tokkos, we got Demopoulos. This could be a great, great night for the country of Greece, a country that's given so many gifts to the world. They will be dancing in the streets of Thessaloniki If both of these can, Tokkos and Demopoulos can get wins on Saturday, but we're going to have to find out how that goes. We're going to have to watch the fights ourselves and see what happens here. But I'm picking Oumar C to win by decision. What do you guys think? Let's see. You're saying no. What? Yeah, I know Tokkos is Brendan Allen's bestie. Yeah. So what are you yelling no about, dude? You don't think I should go with C here? I don't know what to do about Tokkos. I still have to find out more about this guy. And are you worried about the Gatto KO? Is that what you're worried about? Either way. Or wait, are you saying that I shouldn't be getting a dog, father? I know you love dogs. You got a big ass Newfoundland, don't you, dude? I used to have a Rottweiler. Now I'm getting a Spanish Mastiff, a Presa Canario is what they're called. But he was abandoned. They tied him to a gate of a cemetery, and somebody went and found him and rescued him, and now he's coming to live with us. So anyway, you guys, let's move on to this next fight, which is, wow, it is going to be Tom Big Train Nolan, the minus 500 favorite, going up against Victor Martinez, the plus 385 underdog. Fight doesn't go to decision. Juiced to the tits here at minus 700 for this fight. All right, let's first start talking about the trends here, and let's get these stats up on the screen for you guys. There we go. All right. I had written up that whole Truckle versus C fight, so now that's all wasted. But here, hang on. Let's first start talking about Victor Martinez. 13-5 as a pro. He's 0-1 in the UFC so far. He's coming off losing by first-round KO against Jordan the Monkey King Levitt as a pick'em, and he's taken over a year off to recover from the shame of that performance. One thing that you don't really live down in this sport is getting flatlined by Jordan Levitt. So it'll be interesting to see how Martinez bounces back from that pants-shitting performance last February. Victor got his shot on Dana White's Contender Series in September of 2021 after he put together a 6-fight win streak on the regionals, and he was a plus 130 underdog going into the Jacob Rosales fight. He won that fight by a 29-28 unanimous decision after breaking Rosales' right arm in the first round and then outlanding Rosales 144 to 113 in significant strikes. Then Vic lost his UFC debut against Levitt, and his second UFC fight will be against another guy making his second UFC performance in Tom Big Train Nolan. Tom is coming off a first-round KO loss in his UFC debut as well. His was against Nick Moda, and Nolan let down bettors there as a minus 350 favorite. And if you go to Nolan's pre-UFC tape, you see why this kid is considered such a talented prospect with such a high ceiling. He's huge for the division. He's a southpaw. He's only 24 years old, and he fights at a high pace. He's a BJJ brown belt. He's shown a knack to be able to finish fights. He brutally shaved the ass of Bogdan Grad, who was talking loads of shit pre-fight, mind you, by first-round KO as a minus 145 favorite in that spot. And Tom was 5-0 on the regional scene in Australia before that with 3 knockout finishes. And he had an 8-fight amateur career prior to that where he went 6 wins, 1 loss, and 1 no contest. Tom is a massive minus 500 favorite over Victor Martinez here. So the Victor Martinez advantages, you won't have to listen long here to find them. He's got the overall experience advantage here with 11 more fights and 110 more minutes of cage time. And he's got the strength of schedule advantage because of that experience advantage. You can also see how Victor has fought the better brand of regional scene competition as well. But Tom Nolan is 8.5 years younger than Victor. He's 7 inches taller than Victor. He's got a 3-inch reach advantage. He's the southpaw in the southpaw versus orthodox matchup. He's got the striking advantage. Nolan's size, length, output from the southpaw stance, and power make him a serious problem to deal with at range. Martinez is a talented boxer with good technique, solid counters, and some pop. But when you add in the additional challenges of Nolan's size, I do think that Nolan wins the minutes with his output and pressure and wins the moments with his power and step-in knees. And I think Nolan's got the grappling advantage here. Once again, due to Nolan's length and pressure, that the clinch game will be a place where Nolan can excel. Like we saw Levitt succeed against Victor, and also Nolan should be the more likely guy to offensively wrestle and win minutes and moments on the ground in this fight. I think it's important to note before I summarize this fight that recency bias is a curse and an opportunity at the same time. And there's no better time to get a rock bottom price on a fighter than after the most embarrassing performance of their career. And Victor Martinez is coming off a first round KO loss to Jordan Levitt. All right. Now, remember, I said this for a fight that happened a little while ago. And I said, there is no better time to get a good price on Nick Moda than after getting his ass shaved by Trey Ogden and getting finished in the third round. A finish that was later overturned due to a phantom tap or whatever, or the referee error, whatever it was. Nick Moda was coming off the worst performance of his career, and he was fighting a guy in Nolan that was less experienced, had fought much worse brands of competition, and he was going up against a guy that had just as much power as him, and you got a big plus money number on Moda. Now, I think that the differential in talent between these two guys, that there's literally an ocean between them. I think Tom's size, youth, length, output, and power are going to be serious problems for Martinez. I favor Nolan's abilities to win minutes and moments in the striking, in the clinch, and the grappling exchanges here. Martinez is the more experienced fighter who has fought the better brand of competition as a pro, but it's hard to picture him being better anywhere than Nolan. I think Victor Martinez runs into a dick saw here. It's not going to be pretty, but the only thing that's less pretty than the probable outcome for Martinez is the price of the props on the Nolan side. So this fight is almost definitely a stay away from me from a gambling standpoint, but the pick is going to be for Tom Big Train Nolan to shave the ass of Victor Martinez by first round KO. Is it going to be the ass shaving of the week? Hell no. He's a minus 500 favorite, so I can't make him the ass shaving of the week. But I think that this is like the dick saw of the week or the ass waxing of the month. I think that this is just in pure talent, in terms of what these guys' ceilings are as mixed martial artists. Tom Nolan should wipe the floor with this dude. But we got to remember Martinez, like I said, coming off the most embarrassing loss of his career. He's more experienced. And I think we should also think of one thing here too. Remember, Victor Martinez trains with Carlos Diego Ferreira. And Carlos Diego Ferreira was looking like he was getting washed. Like he was giving up halfway through fights, that he wasn't able to push a pace for 3 rounds. And he was going up against a pace monster in Rombeski. And he came out looking like a much younger version of himself. So, if Diego was on some of the good stuff, now that USADA's gone, guess who's working out at the same gym as Diego? So you never know, man. Victor Martinez could absolutely surprise some people here. It's not like he's fighting a guy in Nolan that's crazy experienced or has this amazing resume behind him. But yeah, I think Nolan's going to shave this dude's ass. And I think if he doesn't, it might be time to go kind of like back to the drawing board and work on a couple of things here, maybe take some time off and come back a different version of yourself. But I think that Tom Nolan's going to make this one look easy. Let's see what you guys are saying here. Tokkos, yeah. Dogfather is a dog father. Yes. Getting a mastiff. Yes, sir, man. Ours a frog father. The dog father's name is Macwell. Macwell. Oh, I like Macwell. That's a really good name. Is Nolan by Sub Sneaky. So Nolan does have a good ground game. Yeah. And I think that by sub it is sneaky because I think Nolan could mix in the grappling here. And the one thing that I saw on tape a lot from Victor Martinez is that he gives up his back when he gets back up. Nolan is a BJJ brown belt. He's super long and tall, which makes him be able to get chokes from angles that some people just aren't going to be able to get them from. So I think Nolan by sub could be a sneaky play here. Let's see what your Uncle Weezy's betting template has to say about Nolan by sub at plus 900. Nolan has never won a fight by submission, and one of 4 losses for Victor Martinez is by submission. So I got it about 8% of his win condition. The price is 10%. I think it's a somewhat sneaky play, especially considering that the fight doesn't go to decision for this fight, is juiced up at minus 700. So it's going to be either, that they're telling you that this fight finishes inside the distance 87.5% of the time, 7 out of 8 times. So there's only 4 ways it could finish. Nolan by sub, Nolan by KO, Martinez by sub, Martinez by KO. So it's one of the 4 results that makes up 87.5% of the probability. So at plus, 900, which gives you a 10% implied probability, I think it is a sneaky play. Mastiff temperaments are great. Newfoundlands are part Mastiff. Yeah, they got those giant heads, dude. And the Newfoundland is like a swimming dog. They got that big giant rib cage, so they're really great at swimming. So yeah, man, I love Newfoundlands. They're great dogs. I love all Mastiffs, sweetest dogs. Dogfather saying maybe he grapples and plays it safe after getting bonked. Yeah, that could be the case, man. It could, because I think he could take down Martinez whenever he wants. He looks 3 weight classes bigger than this dude. So yeah, I'm looking for Nolan to get the job done here and do it violently. We got 187 of you guys hanging out live between Twitter and YouTube. Hit that thumbs up. Hit that subscribe button. Please leave me a comment down below, and please consider joining the Patreon, where you can get access for the $25 a month tier on Patreon or Dub Club to this phenomenal statistics package that comes along with subscriber-only content every Wednesday night, probability, myself and DFS by the numbers. Get on that Patreon, or you are basically stealing. That's what's going on here. You're basically stealing if you don't join up to the Patreon. You don't like to steal, do you? You're not a thief, are you? Join the Patreon. Okay, you guys, let's move on to the next fight of the evening, which is going to be Luana Pinhiero going up against Angela Hill. This is a close fight on the bookies lines here, as we've got Pinhiero a plus 115 underdog, Angela Hill a minus 135 favorite. Fight doesn't go to decision. Plus 275 for this fight. So the bookies definitely see this one going to decision a lot. Let's first start talking about the trends for this fight. Now, Luana Pinhiero is 11-2 as a professional, and she's 3-1 in the UFC. She's a judo and Brazilian jiu-jitsu black belt who's been a martial artist from a very young age. Luana is coming off her only UFC loss. It was a fight against Amanda Ribas back in November of 2023, where she was knocked out in the 3rd round by a head kick as a plus 195 underdog. Prior to that, she won 3 straight UFC fights. She won by split decision over Michelle Waterson as a minus 165 favorite. She won a unanimous decision versus Sam Hughes as a massive minus 450 favorite, and then won via DQ and an Oscar-worthy acting performance against Randa Marcos in her debut. Luana will be fighting the experienced veteran of 24 UFC fights, Angela Overkill Hill. Angie is 11-13 in the UFC, but she's been in solid form recently. She's won 3 of her last 4 fights, the most recent win coming against Denise Gomez by unanimous decision as a plus 115 underdog. Prior to that, Angie lost a 5-round main event by unanimous decision to Mackenzie Dern as a plus 150 underdog. Won a unanimous decision versus Emily Ducote as a plus 105 underdog, and a unanimous decision versus Lupi Godinez as a plus 280 underdog. Hill has cashed in a dog in each of her last 3 wins. Angie is a minus 135 favorite versus Luana Pinhiero, the plus 115 underdog. Now, Luana is 8 years younger than Angie Hill, so that is very significant. Luana is the better finisher as well. She's got a 72% finish rate as a pro compared to only 31% for Hill. She also has a slightly higher UFC finish rate in a smaller sample size at 33% compared to only 18% for Hill. Luana's got the power advantage. She's definitely the more explosive striker. She has a knockdown in 4 UFC fights and has an above average 0.5% knockdown percent. Luana swings with bad intentions, but her energy management is poor, so her power in fights is mostly front-loaded. And I believe that Luana is going to have the grappling advantage here, as she's a decorated judoka and BJJ player. She has black belts in both, and she's 5 wins and 0 losses to the submission as a pro. She's averaging 2.5 takedowns per 15 minutes and winning 70% of the control time positions in her fights. She's definitely the more accomplished and dangerous grappler in this matchup. Now, Angie Hill is going to be bigger. She's 1 inch taller. She's going to have a 2-inch reach advantage. She's got, obviously, the overall and UFC experience advantages. 16 more fights overall, 315 more minutes of cage time, 2.5 more years as a professional, and also 20 more fights at the UFC level and 300 more minutes of octagon time. That's 5 more hours in the UFC octagon than Luana Pinhiero. I believe that Angela's going to have the striking advantage here. She's always been a talented kickboxer with a Muay Thai style. She stays busy. She lands as many as she absorbs, and she has above average 44.5% accuracy and above average 65% distance defense. Angie is durable as fuck, so she can take one to give one, and she's in a ton of close fights because she's so hard to finish, because she has solid takedown and submission defense, and because she can win minutes at range. And she's going to have the strength of schedule advantage in this fight. She's got 20 more fights at the UFC level, so obviously the level of competition these two ladies has faced isn't really close. It's heavily in favor of Angela Hill. I think that this fight comes down to the early moment winning potential of Luana versus the 15-minute winning potential of Angie Hill, especially in the latter half of the fight. Luana's 8 years younger. You got to love that. She's the better moment winner, both on the feet and in the grappling exchanges, and she should be the better grappler in this fight. But Angie is taller, longer, way more experienced. She has better conditioning and durability, and that's key. And she's probably the better minute winner at range, especially in the second half of the fight. And she's faced the much better brand of competition, has Hill. I think Luana is live to win in the first, and Angie should win the third. It comes down to how many moments Angie can find early in the fight so that she can potentially steal the first or the second round before Luana slows down inevitably in the third round. I think this fight goes to decision unless Luana gasses and Angie finds a late finish. This fight is dog or pass for me at the current line, and my betting template sees much more value in Pinhiero's decision prop at plus 180 than Hill's decision prop at plus 100. Remember, we're scoring damage, not control. So Pinhiero is the more, is the fighter who does more damage, who is more explosive. I think that this fight is going to be close and that these ladies are well matched, but I will lean with the experience, the size, the strength of schedule, the conditioning, and the durability advantages that Angie Hill has here, and I'm going to pick her to win by decision. There we go. See what you guys are saying in the chat. Let's see. The under 1.5 has some one to it. And I think you're talking for the last fight, though, for Nolan versus Martinez. Yeah, I think that that's probably going to happen for sure. Buying low on the brick here. Crazy odds against a 6-1 prospect who just got KO'd a few months ago. And that was what I was saying. Like, just because Victor Martinez got knocked out a little bit ago, so did Tom Nolan, so they're both coming off a KO loss in their UFC debut in the first round, but one guy is minus 500. So I think that's important to note. Trey Ogden, the GOAT. Yes, sir. Trey Ogden's looking fucking good lately, Pepe. So good. And it just didn't start off that way because Trey Ogden had a very close fight with Jordan Levitt. Tom Nolan is a fraud, says Les Dance. The Czar says good news no matter what from Uncle Wheel. Let's go. Let's go, dude. Yeah, from Uncle Weez. Yeah, of course. What's good, Weezy says, Zach, we got not in the AM, bro, saying Hill always fights to the level of her opponents. That is very true. She's in a lot of close fights. And we got D Spearman in the room saying, Weezy, what's up, D? Good to see you hanging out in here with us, brother. 202 of you hanging out live in here as we get to the next fight, which is going to be Adrian Yanez, who is a minus 350 favorite going up against Vinicius Salvador, who is a plus 285 underdog in this spot. The fight doesn't go to decision for this one, minus 260. So let's first start talking about the trends in this fight as I finish up my coffee at 11:37 p.m. Chicago time. Wash it down with a little water. Let's get down to business. Okay. Adrian Yanez is 16-5 as a professional, and he's 5-2 thus far in the UFC. Currently on a 2-fight losing streak, and he was finished in both of those fights. He lost to Jonathan Martinez due to leg kicks in the second round as a minus 115 pick'em. That was in October of 2023. And before that, lost to Rob Font by first round knockout as a minus 175 favorite. Prior to that, he was on a 9-fight winning streak, and he had strung together 5 straight UFC wins, 4 of them finishes. His wins aren't over the best names. You got Victor Rodrigues, Gustavo Lopez, Randy Costa, Davey Grant. It's a good win, but it was a very close fight. And then Tony Kelly. Only one of those guys is actually still with the UFC, but he did look very good over that winning streak. Yanez is in a get-right spot here against Vinicius Salvador, who's 0-2 in the UFC so far, and both of those losses came against mid to low-level flyweights. Now Vinicius is moving up a weight class and facing a guy in his bantamweight debut who is ranked 12th in the division going into the Font fight. Quite a step up in competition for Vinicius Salvador from CJ Vergara, Victor Altamirano, and Shannon Ross, all at 125 pounds. And then he gets welcomed to the bantamweight weight class by Adrian Yanez. I hope that his management got some kind of assurance that they'd get one more fight on their contract if they took this one. But so Vinicius lost his UFC debut against Victor Altamirano by a 29-28 unanimous decision as a pick'em. And he lost a 29-28 unanimous decision to CJ Vergara as a plus 145 underdog after that. Vinicius is a plus 285 underdog to the minus 350 favorite in Adrian Yanez here. Yanez is going to have the pro experience advantage. He's got one more fight, 65 more minutes of cage time. He's got the UFC experience advantage with 5 more fights and 20 more minutes of octagon time. Adrian has the striking advantage. He's a top-notch MMA boxer. He has fast, powerful hands, good footwork, and he's 10-2 to the knockout as a pro. I rate Adrian as the better minute and moment winner at distance striking range, and he's got the strength of schedule advantage here as Adrian has fought, beaten, and lost to the more experienced guys with the better win-loss records. Now, Vinicius Salvador is going to be 3 years younger almost than Adrian Yanez. He's the southpaw in the southpaw versus orthodox matchup. And Vinicius has got a 100% finish rate in his 14 wins. And this dude is 13-2 to the knockout as a professional. So he's a dangerous striker in his own right. But bottom line is that, you know, this is not a good matchup for Vinicius Salvador. This guy is losing to low-level flyweights. And now he's facing a bantamweight who had a number next to his game and had strung together 5 straight UFC wins, 4 of them finishes. We saw Yanez lose to a top-notch, top 10 bantamweight in Rob Font and a top 15 guy in Jonathan Martinez, while Vinicius Salvador really wouldn't even be classified as a top 40 top 40 flyweight. You know, so I mean, like, just the level of competition that's happening here in terms of a step up for Vinicius Salvador is crazy. Second of all, can't really count on Vinicius Salvador to be able to grapple successfully against Adrian Yanez, who's shown 100% takedown defense in the UFC and keeps his fights at distance striking range 96% of the time. Vinicius Salvador wasn't finding success at range against CJ Vergara and Victor Altamirano. How do you think it's going to go against Adrian Yanez? I mean, I have no idea how Vinicius Salvador wins this fight. None. And I'm not even a big fan of Yanez. I'm not even a fan of Yanez. I've always thought that they've been protecting this guy, that they've been making sure to give him the easiest matchups possible and build him up because I think they really want him doing well. You know, his first 5 fights in the UFC were to protect his inability to grapple. And, you know, he hasn't fought anybody yet that shoots takedowns in 7 UFC fights. But coming off 2 losses, I mean, if I'm looking to get this guy a win, I mean, like, I don't know who I could give him that's lower level than Vinicius Salvador. If any of you guys in the chat have any fucking clue how Vinicius Salvador wins this fight, please enlighten me. Please let me know because I am completely without answers. I think that Adrian Yanez is going to absolutely destroy this fool, and I'm picking him to win by 2nd round knockout. Adrian Yanez in what we call in the business a get right spot up against Fenomeno Vinicius Salvador, one of the guys has one of the worst regional scene records and most fraudulent regional scene records I've ever seen. So yeah, looking for Yanez to get the job done here and get it done with style. We got SD Crusader saying, yo, Adrian, what is up, dude? And we got Easy Bets in the room saying, what's up, Unc? What's going on, Easy Bets? Always good to see you hanging out in here, brother. Let's move on to this next fight, you guys. It is going to be Themba the Answer Gorimbo at -135 going up against Ramiz Brahimaj at +115. Fight doesn't go to decision for this fight at -225. So let me get these stats up here for you guys. And there we go. And let me get my notes up. Talk about the trends, right? Themba Gorimbo is the belle of the ball right now. He has an inspiring backstory. The Rock bought him a house, and he had a well built in the village where he's from in Zimbabwe. He's a very likable fighter that the fans and the UFC brass is rooting for. Themba's on a 2-fight winning streak right now, and he's 2-1 thus far in the UFC. He made his debut against AJ Fletcher in February of 2023. He was a +220 underdog, and he was finished in the 2nd round by guillotine choke in that fight. Then Themba bounced back with a dominant 30-27 unanimous decision win over Takashi Sato. He was a -120 favorite in that fight. Themba got 3 takedowns, over 11 minutes of control time, and he landed a knockdown in that fight as well. And his most recent fight was a 32-second ass shaving of Pete Rodrigues, where he outstruck Pete 12-0 and landed a knockdown as a -250 favorite in that spot. Themba is matched up against Fortis MMA product Ramiz Brahimaj, who's currently on a 2-year layoff. Ramiz is 2-2 in the UFC so far. He made his debut against Max Griffin as a +125 underdog, had his ear damn near torn off, and the fight was stopped in the 3rd round because of that. He then finished Sasha Palatnikov via rear naked choke 2.5 minutes into the 1st round of that fight as a -165 favorite. He then lost a 30-27 unanimous decision to Wiley veteran Court McGee as a -125 favorite. Then Ramiz choked out Michael Gilmore in the 1st round as a +380 favorite or -380 favorite back in February of 2022. Brahimaj then withdrew from his fight against Michael Morales in July of 22. then pulled out of his next scheduled fight with Carlston Harris with an injury in February of 2023. We found out earlier today that was a spinal injury that supposedly came very close to ending his career. And now Ramiz is a plus 115 underdog against Themba Gorimbo, who's the minus 135 favorite. Themba Gorimbo, the much bigger dude here. He's 2 inches taller. He's going to have a 4.5-inch reach advantage. He's the more experienced fighter overall with 2 more pro fights and 45 more minutes of pro cage time. He's also fought for a year and a half longer. And I think that he's going to have the striking advantage in this fight. Themba uses his length well at range. We have a very small sample size of distance striking metrics from Gorimbo, but they're excellent so far, with a positive 4.5 distance striking differential, a 2-0 knockdown ratio, landing a knockdown on 4% of the significant strikes that he lands, and he has 50% accuracy, 79% defense. Phenomenal numbers, but in a very small sample size, so they don't mean that much. I think Ramiz will have problems closing the distance and also worrying about the takedown attempts of Gorimbo when he's at range here. And I think Gorimbo is going to be the better wrestler. I rate him as the better wrestler, the guy more likely to get top control here. We saw Court McGee style on Ramiz with his wrestling and top game, and Themba is attempting 7.5 takedowns per 15 minutes, and over 85% of his UFC cage time is taking place in control time positions. I'm not sure Ramiz can wrestle against anybody that isn't extremely low level, and Gorimbo is a very solid and persistent wrestler. Now, Ramiz is going to be 2 years younger. He has the UFC experience advantage with 1 more fight and 10 more minutes of octagon time. He's got the finishing ability with 100% finish rate in his 10 pro wins. All of those finishes come by way of submission. He's got the durability advantage, in my opinion. Ramiz has only been finished once as a professional, and it was a doctor stoppage due to his ear getting torn off. He's durable. He's got a ton of heart, and there's no quit in this guy. Gorimbo is, on the other hand, has been finished in 3 of his 4 losses. So I definitely rate Ramiz as the more durable fighter. I think he's the better submission grappler here. This is how Ramiz wins fights, a 100% finish rate and an extremely aggressive submission attack. Themba can get sloppy on the ground, and he's been submitted in 2 of his 4 pro losses and in his only UFC loss. So if Themba makes a mistake on the mat, Ramiz is capable of taking advantage of that mistake and finishing the fight. And Ramiz also has the strength of schedule advantage here. He's fought the more experienced brand of UFC competition with the slightly better win-loss ratios. So this is an interesting fight. Gorimbo's on a roll right now, and the UFC does look to be setting him up to succeed. Neither one of these guys has good wins. For Themba, it's Takashi Sato and Pete Rodrigues. And for Brahimaj, it's Michael Gilmore and Sasha Palatnikov. So neither one of these guys has beaten UFC-level competition yet as a pro. But it's definitely Brahimaj who's been in there with the tougher guys in Court McGee and Max Griffin. And I would rate Ramiz's submission grappling as better in this fight as well. The 2-year layoff, though, is a major concern, and also a pretty good reason to either stay away from this fight or just take the Gorimbo side. This line has moved quite a bit. A few days ago, Ramiz was plus 165, and now the line is close to flipping with Ramiz only a plus 115 underdog. I think Gorimbo has the higher ceiling. He's more athletic. He has more height and length, and his wrestling is solid. But if Brahimaj gets to a dominant position, I think he can finish this fight. I think Themba by decision and Ramiz by sub are the 2 most likely paths here, and my betting template agrees with that. But I'm going to lean Themba here. I just don't see anything from Brahimaj that would make me think he's UFC level at this point, while Themba is at least flashing some dynamic striking and the ability to win minutes with his wrestling. So I'm going to lean to the Themba side here, and I'm going to pick him to win by decision in this fight. Themba, the answer, Gorimbo, to get his 3rd UFC win. This one over Brahimaj by way of decision. Let's see here. We got Matt saying Salvador could win. It's decent competition, especially if he's using his hooks in fights like Davy Grant. Yeah, well, he's going to be throwing hooks because that's all he really throws. Everything's loopy, while Yanez should be a little bit more direct into the target. But yeah, those hooks, Sometimes against a really technical guy like Yanez, some of that unorthodox shit can really give them problems. But who has the rock narrative? It is definitely our guy Themba that has the rock narrative. SD Crusader saying, fairly recent loss to AJ Fletcher makes Gorimbo absolutely unbettable as the favorite to me. When I found out that Brahimaj had a spinal injury, I just jumped on that Gorimbo money line. I mean, because the 2-year layoff is concerning enough as it is. I don't see anything from Brahimaj offensively outside of the Palatnikov and Gilmore fights, who I think that these guys are not even close to UFC level. While Gorimbo is, in my opinion, UFC level at this point. So, I think that Brahimaj's got a lot to prove, but the 2-year layoff, the serious spinal injury that could have ended his career, coming back from that against the guy that the UFC is clear. I mean, look, the Yanez fight is below this. This is the third highest fight on the card. They're not highlighting Ramiz Brahimaj. The UFC could give a fuck about Ramiz Brahimaj. He has no charisma. Nobody gives a shit about him. His fighting style is okay. He's a very good grappler, and he's a very tough dude. But this guy Gorimbo's got the story. He's got the hype. He's got the rock, and he's got the feel-good story about, coming back from adversity and making something of yourself with all the odds against you. So that's why he's up here on this card. They're continuing to try to put him in situations to succeed. And who better to succeed against than a guy whose career might already be over and we don't even know it. He might be showing up for a check here. So we don't know, but I am picking Themba Gorimbo to win this fight. And I think he's going to win it fairly convincingly. But if he makes a mistake on the mat against the grappler, the quality of Brahimaj, I'm going to lose that bet, but it is what it is. Yeah, I am sleeping on Ramiz. I think he's really bad, Pepe. I really do. When he fought UFC level competition, now these are guys that are better than Gorimbo. When he fought Court and when he fought Max Griffin. Can you find me any 10 or 15 second stretches of either of those fights where you're like, oh, Ramiz is winning right here? I'm sleeping on this guy because he's shown me fucking absolutely nothing against anybody that's ever had a pulse. He doesn't win minutes. He's never won a decision in his career. He's never knocked anybody out in his career. He hasn't shown me shit on the feet yet. And he's a submission or bust guy. So I am definitely sleeping on Ramiz, but I get it. People have bet him from plus 165 down to plus 115. And he's taken on a lot of steam this week. I'm definitely going the other way. Yes, seasoned vets against good competition. Yeah, he's definitely fought the better guys, but he's done jack shit in either one of those fights to let me think that he's beating anybody at this level. That's the problem. It's like Themba, I've seen some explosion out of him. I've seen some ability to wrestle, some conditioning, some power. I haven't seen anything from that, but I do also see Themba making mistakes, and Ramiz could absolutely take advantage of one of those mistakes. And at plus 165 by sub, it probably is his best win condition. All right, you guys, let's move on to this next fight. It is the co-main event, and it is going to be Chaos Williams at minus 122 going up against Carlston Harris at plus 102. Fight doesn't go to decision for this fight at minus 210. So let's get these stats up on the screen. And we're going to first start talking about the trends in this fight after I get a sip of water. This is a great co-main event. I love this fight. This fight card does not have a lot of high-level fights on it, but this is an intriguing high-level fight. Chaos Williams, 14-3 as a pro, 5-2 in the UFC, and he's won 3 out of his last 4 fights. He's coming off a split decision win over Orlando Bedoya 1 year ago as a minus 400 favorite. Before that, he was on the wrong end of a split decision versus Randy Rude Boy Brown as a pick'em. He knocked out Miguel Baeza in the 3rd round in November of 2021 as a plus 125 underdog. And in June of 2021, he won a 29-28 unanimous decision versus Matt Semmelsberger as a minus 160 favorite. Chaos has serious power. He only has 2 UFC losses that came against Randy Brown and Michel Pereira, and both of those fights were very close. And he's finished 3 of his 5 UFC wins by way of knockout. Chaos is a better moment winner than he is a minute winner at the UFC level, because every fight that didn't end with a Chaos KO victory wound up being a very close decision. Chaos squares off against the fighting pride of Guyana, Carlston Harris, who's 19-5 as a professional, 4-1 in the UFC, and he's on a 2-fight winning streak. His UFC wins come against Jeremiah Wells in an awesome comeback 3rd-round submission win. He was a plus 100 underdog in that fight. He got a win over Jared Gooden as a minus 305 favorite. That was a 30-27 unanimous decision. Gooden was a short notice replacement in that fight and weighed in like 7 pounds heavy. He beat Impa Kasanganay, who's on a roll right now outside of the UFC, by 1st-round knockout as a plus 100 underdog in that spot. And in his UFC debut, he beat Christian Aguilera by 1st-round submission as a minus 200 favorite. Harris' only UFC loss came against Shavkat Rakhmonov. He was dropped by a spinning heel kick and then finished with ground and pound in the 1st round. He was a plus 220 underdog in that spot. Carlston's a well-rounded, well-tested veteran with power, a slick submission game, and a knack for sniffing out his opponent's weakness and winning minutes while exposing that weakness. Carlston is a plus 100 underdog to Chaos, the minus 120 favorite. So Chaos Williams is 7 years younger than Carlston Harris. He's going to have a 1-inch reach advantage here, which is kind of odd because Carlston just looks to be the much longer dude, but it is Chaos with the 1-inch reach advantage. Chaos has the UFC experience advantage with 2 more fights and 35 more minutes of octagon time. And I think Chaos is the better striker. I do like his striking better than Harris's. He's way more technical. He stays much busier, and he has the slightly better distance striking differential compared to Harris. If this was a range kickboxing match, I think Chaos would have the edge. The power on the Chaos side is something I like, but both guys have power. Harris is 5-2 to the knockout as a professional, but Chaos is 7-0 to the knockout. He's landed 4 UFC knockdowns and absorbed 0, while Harris has landed 1 and absorbed 1. And he's been knocked out twice as a pro, has Carlston Harris, while Chaos has never been finished in 17 professional fights. So not only would I say that Chaos has the power edge, but I'd also say that he has the more reliable chin. So we got to give Chaos the durability advantage as well. And I like his strength of schedule advantage. I do think Chaos has faced and beaten the more experienced brand of UFC competition with the better win-loss ratios. Now, Carlston Harris is more experienced as a professional. He's got 7 more fights. He's got 80 more minutes of pro cage time. He's got the well-rounded skill set. Carlston has 8 pro wins by decision, 6 pro wins by submission, and 5 pro wins by knockout. He's big and long for the division. He has power, a solid clinch game, a suffocating grappling game with deadly front chokes, and he's experienced and faced a solid level of competition. Chaos is more of a stand-up fighter, while Carlston can find ways to win wherever the fight goes. And I think the grappling advantage goes to Harris here. Carlston can push a very heavy pace that drains his opponents. He can stick to you like glue in the clinch and on the mat, and he loves to set up his signature front choke series that has gotten him 4 of his 5 career submission wins. We haven't seen Chaos's grappling tested much at the UFC level, and Harris has the skill set to make Chaos defend in ways we haven't seen him defend in yet at the UFC level. So this is a really fun co-main event between 2 exciting welterweights. On the Chaos side, I love the fact that he's 7 years younger, has a 1-inch reach advantage, the UFC experience and strength of schedule advantages, and I believe he's the better and more powerful striker with the better chin. On the Harris side, I like the overall experience, the well-rounded skill set that's great at winning minutes, and he will be the better grappler in this matchup. Chaos has been a very efficient grappler thus far in the UFC. His efficiency rating is excellent, but we haven't really seen him tested, as he's only seen 10 takedown attempts against in 7 UFC fights. So we have to be aware of the fact that Harris might grapple more than Chaos's last 7 opponents combined, and could potentially expose a hole that we don't even really know is there in Williams' skill set. That being said, it's also obvious that Chaos could expose the durability differential there appears to be between these two fighters with the power we know Chaos has, combined with the fact that Chaos has an iron chin and he's never been finished, while Carlston has been knocked out in the first round of 2 of his 5 pro losses. So I'm a big Harris fan. He's awkward, powerful. He can push a suffocating, grappling heavy pace. But I think I'm going to rely on the grappling efficiency we've seen from Chaos thus far and side with the youth, the durability, the striking, and the power and the UFC strength of schedule advantages that we have on the Chaos side. And I'm actually going to pick him to win this fight by first round knockout. Chaos Williams by KO in round number 1 is the pick. Let's see. Anyone have a cooler Tapology pick than Chaos? Yes. Vanessa, Little Monster, come on, man. Of course there's somebody that has a better KO. Maybe not better than Makwan Amirkhani. Maybe not better than Shamil Abdur-Rahimov. But yes, Vanessa Demopoulos does have a better Tapology picture. That cannot be debated, my friend. All right. We got Amirkhani still holds that title. Yes, Amirkhani number 1 and number 2, Vanessa, Little Monster, Demopoulos, Greece, stand up. But let's move on to the main event of the evening, everybody. It is going to be Edson Barboza going up against Laurent the Miracle Murphy. We do have Barboza as a plus 118 underdog. Murphy, the minus 138 favorite. The fight doesn't go to decision in this fight at minus 140. Excuse me. All right, let's get these stats up on the screen for you guys. And let's talk about the trends in this fight. Edson is an ultra veteran. He's 24-11 as a pro. He's 14-10 in the UFC since the year 2013. And he's won 4 of his last 6 fights and is currently on a 2-fight winning streak at the age of 38. Edson won a 5-round unanimous decision over Sadiq Youssef back in October of 2023. He was a plus 140 underdog in that one. He won by first-round knockout versus Billy Quarantillo as a plus 150 underdog. Prior to that, Edson lost the unanimous decision to Bryce Mitchell as a plus 140 underdog, and he was finished in the 3rd round by Giga Chikadze as a minus 125 favorite. Edson's a very talented and powerful kickboxer who does his best work at distance striking range, and he'll be sharing the main event spotlight with Laurent the Miracle Murphy. Laurent is undefeated as a pro, 13-0-1, and he's 5-0-1 in the UFC. Laurent doesn't fight much. He's only had 6 UFC fights in almost 5 years in the organization, and he's went from an undefeated prospect to an undefeated guy who shows up once a year and pulls out of every other fight. Murphy is coming off a dominant unanimous decision victory over Josh Kulabau in July of 2023. He was a minus 140 favorite in that fight, and he won a really close split decision versus Gabriel Santos, who took that fight on short notice and had to make the short notice weight cut and flight from Brazil to England to make that fight. And I thought he pretty clearly beat Murphy there. Laurent was a minus 180 favorite in that fight. Prior to the Santos fight, Murphy hadn't fought since October of 2021, so we haven't really seen much of Laurent Murphy lately, but he did look great against Kulabau. Laurent pulled out of a scheduled bout with Dan Ige back in February, and now he has this main event spot against Edson Barboza at the Apex. Laurent is a minus 140 favorite, and the comeback on Edson Barboza is plus 120. Now, Barboza's the bigger dude here. He's 2 inches taller. He's going to have a 2-inch reach advantage over Laurent. He's got the pro and UFC experience advantages, 21 more pro fights, about 4 more hours of pro cage time. Edson also, since the year 2013, has 18 more fights at the UFC level and about 215 more minutes of octagon time compared to Laurent Murphy. I think Edson Barboza is the better kickboxer. It's always been Edson's strongest area of MMA over a massive sample size of fights in octagon time against the best competition in the UFC. Edson has a positive 0.6 distance striking differential, 45% accuracy, and 61% defense. That's all above average for the division. He's landed 12 knockdowns since 2013, and he's got a 1% knockdown percentage. He's powerful, precise, and his kicks to all targets on the body are fast, flashy, and deadly. And he's definitely got the strength schedule advantage over Laurent Murphy. He's fought, beaten, and lost to the more experienced brand of UFC competition with the better win-loss ratios. Now, Laurent the Miracle Murphy is 5.5 years younger than Edson Barboza. He's got excellent striking in his own right. He's fast and athletic. His UFC striking metrics are very good, a positive 1.2 distance striking differential, 0.8% knockdown percentage, a 2-to-1 knockdown ratio, which is the same as Barboza, and a 7-0 career record to the knockout, and 2 UFC wins by way of knockout. Laurent is not out of his depth on the feet here against Edson Barboza, and Laurent has got some pretty good grappling numbers in terms of efficiency. He's got a positive 1.42 grappling efficiency rating. He's attempting about 29% of the total takedowns in his fight, yet he's winning about 39% of the control time positions. His takedown defense is way below average, but his get-up game and ability to reverse position on the mat is actually very good. Laurent wins minutes and moments in the grappling exchanges. Saw him actually take down a good BJJ player in Ricardo Ramos and finish him on the mat. So it's an interesting main event between 2 exciting featherweight strikers. Edson has a ton of advantages on paper here. 2 inches of reach and height, a big overall and UFC experience advantage. He's been the much more active fighter as of late. His kickboxing has always been on point, and he's faced, beaten, and lost to the better brand of UFC competition by far. Now, Murphy's 5.5 years younger. He's explosive, athletic, and a very accomplished switch stance kickboxer in his own right. He showed off the ability to offensively wrestle and win minutes and moments on the mat in the Ramos and Culibao fights, and that has been an area Barboza has struggled with in the past. I think this fight is going to take place at distance striking range. Both guys are dangerous there, but this is a big step up in competition for Murphy. It's going to be his first fight scheduled for 5 rounds in the UFC, while this is the 5th time Barboza has main evented in the UFC, and this will be Murphy's first ever UFC fight in the United States. Every other fight has taken place in England or Abu Dhabi for Laurent Murphy. So this is going to be the first time that he comes to the States to fight. Murphy has a lot to prove here. And if I was confident that he would be able to win minutes in the grappling exchanges, I'd think he was the rightful favorite in this spot. However, I do think that this is going to be a kickboxing match. And it's impossible to ignore the fact that Barboza is taller, longer, more experienced overall than in the UFC, and he's just as explosive and powerful at range as Murphy, and he's fought the way better brand of competition and has been the much more active fighter. Barboza has shut dudes off with leg kicks, body kicks, highlight reel head kicks, knees to the head in the Dariush Billy Q fights, and his knockouts over Shane Burgos and Terry Edom were all-timers. I think plus money on the Barboza money line is the play here, but we have to keep in mind Edson is 38 years old, and even though he won the Yusuf fight, he was dangerously close to being finished in the first round by a fighter in Yusuf who is reminiscent of Murphy. Powerful, explosive, athletic, young. A very intriguing main event here that should be all action, and I'm confident that somebody gets served here. Fight ends inside the distance or by knockout are 2 spots that I think have value this week, and I'm going to lean to the Edson side here due to the size, the experience, the strength of schedule, and the 5-round experience advantages that he has. In addition to this being Laurent Murphy's first ever fight in the United States, I'm going to pick Edson Barboza to win this fight by 4th round knockouts. Let's save all those picks. Let's see what you guys are saying in the chat here. We've got why is he the dog then, says Bad Boy Viv. I mean, it's a good question, man. But, Laron Murphy is 5.5 years younger, and Edson Barboza is 38 years old. You know what I mean? Like that's the kind of thing that will scare away bettors, Laron's still undefeated as a professional. We have to keep that in mind. So if this winds up being a very close decision, you could see Laron get the nod due to the fact that he is the undefeated fighter and has a little more at stake. I mean, we just saw Laron get a decision that he probably didn't deserve against Santos, and because he's the undefeated fighter, a lot of these boxing-based judges are going to give close fights to the undefeated fighter. So, and it probably is the age, yes. But we did it, you guys. Who do I think the UFC wants to win? I don't know. That's a good question. Probably Murphy, but like if they were setting up Murphy for a win, he'd be fighting in the UK. He wouldn't be fighting at the UFC Apex, especially against somebody that's so much more experienced than him. Has fought the much better brand of competition and has way more main event experience. So I don't know. I don't know who the UFC wants to win, but let's first of all here start with the Bootsy Collins Memorial Dogs Are Barking pick of the week. So I'm looking for a spot here that's plus money that I think could potentially cash here. And I'd like to see some on-paper advantages also mixed up with advantages that are stylistic. And I guess the best plus money shot that I can find this week is the Edson Barboza money line at plus 118. Like we just broke this fight down. I really do believe that Edson has got too many advantages here to ignore on paper. And to just come out and say that you think Laron Murphy's the way better striker here, which he would have to be in order to justify him being a minus 148 favorite, I would just have to disagree and say that Edson Barboza isn't really out of his depth against anybody on the feet at this level in this division. So I think Edson Barboza at plus money, plus 118 this week in a main event spot. There's a lot of things on paper here to like. And I think that Edson at 38 years old is still just as dangerous and effective and explosive and fast of a striker as Laron Murphy is here. And then you add in those experience advantages, the size and length advantages, the strength, the schedule advantages, the 5-round experience advantages. And I think that Edson Barboza at plus 118 is a great plus money spot for the Bootsy Collins Memorial Dogs Are Barking pick of the week. And we've got a new dog coming to your Uncle Weezy's household coming here on Friday. Another big dog. Hopefully he'll be barking and finding us some good underdog spots to like. But we got Edson Barboza's money line at plus 118, which brings us to the last order of business of the day. And that's Uncle Weezy's ass shaving of the week. Which one of these fighters is going to win violently? Which one of these guys is my most confident pick of the week where I'm not laying too much juice, where it's not too obvious, but I also feel really safe in the ability of this fighter to be able to get the job done, cash us a bet, and hopefully do it in violent fashion, just like Esteban Ribovics did for us last week against Terrence McKinney, and shut the dude off with style, flash, and panache. And this week, who better than a guy that I have said that I don't like, but I like him a lot more than I like Vinicius Salvador. And how could I not pick Adrian Yanez to shave the ass of Vinicius Salvador, a guy who's getting outstruck at 125 pounds by Victor Altamirano and CJ Vergara. Now he's coming up against a taller, longer, better boxer who's fought the better brand of competition and who had a 5-fight UFC winning streak at bantamweight, finishing 4 of those 5 wins. Vinicius Salvador's 3 of his last 4 wins before getting invited on the Dana White's Contender Series were against opponents that were 0 wins and 0 losses. One of the most fraudulent regional scene records that I've ever seen. A guy that's just simply not UFC level, going up against a guy that the UFC seems to be desperate to get a win for, and who better and what better way to get right than to make Vinicius Salvador come up a weight class to bantamweight so that he can get his ass shaved via second round knockout by Adrian Yanez. 231 of you guys hanging out live in here with your Uncle Weezy. I appreciate each and every one of you. Do me a favor, hit that thumbs up. Leave me a comment down below. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. And please, for the love of God, please consider joining the Patreon or the Dub Club for $25 a month on the probability tier. You're going to get access to the over-under template, to the betting template, to the advanced stats for both fighters at the UFC level, to the matchup stats where we set these stats side by side and compare them to the divisional averages so you can find out not only how Melissa Gatto's stats and the UFC match up to Tamires Vidal's, but how both fighters match up to the divisional averages. It gives you all the ways to cap a fight: striking, offense and defense, grappling, offense and defense, strength of schedule, last 5 fights, tail of the tape, pro and UFC experience, finish stats, records to decision, KO, and submission. I work really hard on YouTube here for you guys, giving you a bunch of free content. Please help your Uncle Weezy out here. Sign up to the Probability Patreon, the Probability Dub Club, and find yourself getting access to all these phenomenal stats that I curate and put together weekly. I get them out 2 to 3 weeks in advance so you can get your research on these fights done early. And you get access to some of the best benchmarks and analytics in the business for a very, very low price at only $25 a month. And it's a great way to support this work and get access to the subscriber-only content, one of the best shows on the web, Probability Uncensored, where this week I will be bringing back Story Time with Uncle Weezy for paid members only and talking about some college stories that I was going over with some friends when I went to go hang out with them last Thursday. So please join the Patreon. Please consider supporting the work. Uncle Weezy's ass shaving of the week is Adrian Yanez to shave the ass of Vinicius Salvador. The Bootsy Collins Memorial Dogs Are Barking pick of the week is the Edson Barboza money line at plus 118. Let's stack cashed tickets like flapjacks for UFC Vegas 92. Hit that thumbs up on your way out. God bless each and every one of you, and you can catch me tomorrow at Pub Sports Radio, 8 o'clock Central Time, for the DFS show with DFS by the Numbers, Gordo Gambles, and Monk Maddox, and then the subscriber-only content on Patreon, on Dub Club, Probability Patreon, Probability Dub Club, 9:15 Central Time tomorrow night. We're going to take you through all 12 of these fights and find the best plus EV bets so that we can all stack cash tickets like flapjacks together and take into account all the necessary information before we put together our plus EV bets for the week. Thank you guys for hanging out. See you tomorrow on Pub Sports Radio. And if you're a member of the Probability Patreon, we'll see you tomorrow night at 9:15 for Probability Uncensored. Good night, you guys. Good luck betting on the fights, and we'll see you tomorrow.